Hey, I welcome you to this channel. I'm Mr. Review, and this is Save Your Money Reviews. Today we'll be doing a review on Stranding. I'll be giving you my honest and unbiased review, being objective instead of subjective, delivering the best reviews right here for you. I'll tell you what was good and also why the game didn't live up to the hype. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to get into pretty much a lot of details about this game. More so on why the game wasn't as successful as it should have been or could have been. Also, just kind of giving you guys some insight on what I think the problem overall was with the game, and how Kojima, in a sense, could have made it a little more interesting to the general public. Now, I think some people can appreciate the type of art direction he decided to go with the game, and I don't think there's a knock on that either. You know, if someone likes that or prefers this type of style of game or gaming, I think that's certainly their prerogative. That's something they can do, something that's cool, something that's not shouldn't be questioned as well. I think everyone likes something different, and I think some people are looking for something different, opposed to the typical A to B situation for gaming. But again, I'll certainly get into detail about this game from top to bottom of what I feel like, what I feel for this game and about this game. So let's talk about the hype that surrounded the game before it came out. So pretty much there was a lot of hype for this game, not from just a fan standpoint, but from a general audience standpoint, due to the fact that the direction, and also the showing of what Kojima was the direction he was going to go with this game, and the things he displayed for this game were nonetheless pretty interesting. It captured you if you're into just something different, refreshing, something that's crossing the line of never seen before. Whenever Kojima talked about and also released the first initial trailer for this game, it was just so weird, but in a beautiful way. He put it together very, very well, how he formed the trailer. It left you with a lot of questions. It left you with, in a sense, a lot of curiosity, if anything. You were nonetheless curious to see what is this? What is it going to be? What does this mean? What does the beach have to do with anything? What does these dead crabs and sea stranded mammals and fish and things like that? What is the purpose of this? Visually looking, you're just kind of wondering, hey, what's going on here? What is he trying to do with this? Also, I think for Kojima fans, this was a huge thing for them. If you're a fan of Kojima, which I am personally, I'm very fond of him due to the Metal Gear Solid series. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know what that is. One of my favorite all-time game series, period, as far as gaming goes. He did such a well job on orchestrating that series, and I mean, obviously there's flaws within it, but the overall picture of those games are just classic and timeless, and pretty much something I love. I love it with everything I am. It's just a beautiful gaming series, story, just characters, elements, all that is just beautiful. So, of course, him losing his job with Konami, and you kind of just feel this emptiness, knowing that, okay, he lost his job. We may never get another Kojima game. More so for me, it was more so, dang, we may never get another Metal Gear game. Again, that's something that I feel like story-wise has so much more to tell. Even though it has, several games, I feel like there's just so much more story that he left in the open. I will certainly do a review on that gaming series as well, to kind of give you guys my inside thoughts of that series and what I loved about it, what I felt like, could have been better about it. Also, just more input on more so the last game that came out for that series, which was Metal Gear Solid V. There's a lot of divide with that game, and I would love to give you guys an in-depth opinion and review on that gaming series as a whole, and then more specifically, more in depth with the Metal Gear Solid V and my problems that I personally felt was wrong with the story for that game in particular. Again, the series itself isn't flawless, but for the most part, he got those stories and games right. Leading into V, I don't know, what he was trying to do. Well, I do obviously know the point of the game and the overall picture and outlook of the game, but more so, I'm questioning why, more so than what I actually received as far as what he was trying to deliver to his fans. So again, I will certainly get into that series. Guys, let me know if you think that'll be a good thing. If that's something you guys may want to hear, I will certainly do it. I'd be more than happy to review that series. So back into Death Stranding here. So getting back into Death Stranding here, there was a lot of hype because Kojima lost his job with Konami. So as a fan, again, of the Metal Gear series, I'm like, oh, we may never get another Metal Gear game. This may be it, So it was pretty deflating for me personally, learning that he pretty much, I guess you want to say lost his job, got fired, may never work again. Because at the time, there was no questions about him moving to another studio, getting another job, making another game, or any of that. It was just straight, hey, Konami let him go. This is where we stand, type of thing. And then eventually, over time, you get news that he was hired by Sony to produce an original IP and come out with a new game. So once I found out he got a job with Sony, I was happy for him personally as a person, not necessarily for what he has to offer for me as a fan or anyone else, but more so just happy that he was able to continue to work in the industry that I felt or feel like he loves, continue to create, because at the end of the day, Kojima is a creator, and when you are a creator, you have to create. It feels good, it feels natural, it feels like it's a part of your everyday living. And so it kind of was unfortunate when he lost his job, but it was happy, exciting news to know that, hey, he's back on his feet. Sony decided to take him in and let him work on the game. So at this point, I'm just happy for him. I didn't have any expectations as far as new Metal Gear or anything like that. I was just like, hey, okay, I'm glad he had a job. So once I figured out that he's coming out with a new game, a new idea, new property, which is called Death Stranding, and saw the first trailer, I'm like, okay, when I first heard about that he was coming out with a game, I'm like, okay, great, that's good for him. Because it's like, he has made games before Metal Gear. I'm personally not into any of those games. If you guys are, let me know which game in particular you love of his work before or even after Metal Gear, if he decided to make any other games. But more so, I'm more into that specifically from him. Anything outside of that, I haven't really tried to get into. I did do some research on those things, but it was nothing that really I felt or grew up on or felt the need to go back to and try to experience it. But yeah, so when I first heard that he was coming out with a game, I wasn't like overly excited or anything like that. But after he dropped the first trailer for the game, then he had my attention. At that point, I'm like, okay, I've never seen a game quite like this. The direction he decided to go, the mystery, the mystique to the whole trailer was just capturing. It was captivating. I felt like, hey, I need to know more. I need to keep seeing what he's going to do, but I like what he's doing. So he kind of captured my attention the way he decided to market the initial noticing of the game, letting people know, what he's working on. That trailer was great. It was amazing. The music was good. The mystery was good. He certainly put that together very, very well. It seemed well planned out, well thought out, and just executed at the highest level, and which is a great thing. And that's what I expect from him overall, but didn't know he was going to go that type of direction. So at that point, I was pretty excited about it. I was like, okay, pretty much, long story short, all the trailers that he did decide to release for the game captured me more and more and more and more, and I wanted to know more and more and more, and it caught my attention, man. I was like, hey, I need to figure out what this thing is. What is the purpose of this thing? What is the story elements? What is he going to try to do? What is the overall picture to this story in this game that he's trying to tell? So he did certainly catch my attention. As you guys probably already know, he did a lot of trailers with the story more so than gameplay initially. It took a very, very long time, I believe years, before we actually got to see any type of gameplay. But just the trailers alone captured me, made me invested into that particular story and game to see, just try to figure out what it is. I wanted to know. So certainly kudos to him for how he delivered the marketing for that game. It was incredible. It felt like it was an actual movie coming out. It felt like a movie I wanted to actually see at theaters, or in theaters, should I say. That's how well calculated the story delivery for the trailers were, and just how interesting it was. Just allowed you to feel that way if you're invested in those type of things where it's like a lot of mystery. Also, if you guys recall, the game came off as kind of a horror game, and when you actually hear him speak about the game, he says it's not any of that. So that kind of made you like, hold up, well, this thing looks like that. So there must be something so much more to the whole experience, and I think that's what pretty much sold me on it. In that sense of just so much mystique surrounding it, I wanted to know more. All right, guys, I want to certainly get into a lot of the theories that were pretty much being said and posted throughout this time of just trying to figure out what the game is and figure out the direction of the game and what Kojima ultimately wanted to do with the game. I don't know if you guys know, but there was a lot of theories out there throughout this time of people just wanting to know what this game is. So a lot of people came up with their theories of what it is, or what it relates to, or what it's connected to. A lot of people felt like this game was connected to some of his previous work. One of the works was Silent Hill. If you guys recall, he did a short game. It was kind of something called like a demo. Really wasn't a full game or anything that was supposedly supposed to be a full game. It was more so an introduction to let you know he was working on Silent Hills. That's what the PT was. That's how he delivered it during the game. If made you, at first you're playing it, you don't know what it is, what's going on. Which I personally haven't experienced PT, but I've seen a lot of reviews on it. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, a lot of the great things he did with the game for the short, part of that. And a lot of people were amazed. A lot of people were excited because they felt like it delivered that scary element that a lot of a lot of media, a lot of things out there now doesn't, even though they're meant to scare you, usually don't. Some of it is laughable, some of it is cheap, some of it is generic, and most of it is cliche. So it's hard to scare people nowadays because we pretty much at this point seen it all. So this teaser that he decided to drop with PT delivered that element that was missing in a lot of other medias, or mediums, whatever you want to call it, movies, games, just experiences in general. A lot, at the time, there wasn't a lot of things you can watch to kind of get that feeling. So to actually play through it in a video game, where it's first person, a lot of jump scares, just trying to figure out what's going on. Why are you in this loop? And just the puzzle and mystery to it that you had to solve during that whole experience. Kojima did a great job. And then at the end of it, of course, if you guys know, you get a cutscene with Norma Reedus, and it pretty much refers to that this is pretty much a teaser for Silent Hills, which is supposed to be the new Silent Hill game. So there was a lot of theories that were trying to connect Death Stranding to that, saying this is pretty much that finished product of what he was starting. And again, this is before the game was released for Death Stranding. A lot of people was theorizing about that. Another thing that they were trying to connect this game to was Metal Gear Solid, as you guys probably heard of before, or if you haven't, that's pretty much what was going on. That was the second game from his previous work that people were saying this game relates to or continues off to or from. Now, again, there was a lot of big disputes that can't be true for both games, which is Silent Hills and Metal Gear Solid, because a lot of people were stating Konami owned the rights. There's no way he can continue that or do it, without getting legal rights to that for those properties. There was even a bigger theory that pretty much this whole thing was made up. This whole thing was just to play his fans and trick his fans, that he really was not fired from Konami. And that he just did all this to kind of trick us, to kind of keep us guessing and not know exactly what he's going to do next or about to do next. Or, if you guys know Kojima, he's into quote unquote lying to his audience, so there's a lot of mystery to what the man does. A lot of things you have to read between the lines, a lot of things you have to try to discover, figure out, solve. Because he doesn't let you know exactly directly what he's doing, what he's working on, or how long it's going to take for it to come out. It's one of those things where he plays a game with his audiences until, of course, the product is finally out. Now you're getting most of those answers to the mystery, but again, throughout that process is usually a roller coaster ride. So some people were saying he did all that just to kind of, they call it a ruse. He did all that just to kind of trick his fans. And in a sense, I guess he would have probably delivered something very exciting to some of those people who felt hopeless, who felt like, hey, this is it. Kojima's not making anything more. And I'm probably not going to get any more of those games that he makes that I love or that I felt like was going to be a potential great game, which in this case I'm referencing Silent Hills. So yeah, a lot of people saying that, hey, okay, well, he's really not fired. He really still is behind the scenes, behind the curtains, working for them. He does, in a sense, have kind of a new deal with Sony, but Sony has always worked with Konami. As you know, Metal Gear Solid was pretty much a PlayStation exclusive. So there's a lot of good theories out there, and it made sense for some people to feel that way or think that way. I didn't disagree whatsoever. So getting into the situation with the theories. So the Metal Gear Solid, a lot of people were saying this game is pretty much a prequel to that, or a sequel possibly. And to this day, a lot of people, in a sense, still feel like it relates back or is in the same universe as Metal Gear. A lot of people think that is a VR simulation, that the Patriots are pretty much controlling this whole situation, and that you're pretty much in a VR situation and you have not woken up, in a sense. So not too sure about that. I'm not an expert on all those theories to really get in depth in that situation, but again, a lot of people feel like Death Stranding, the experience, in a sense, is a VR simulation. The universe, the world itself, is a VR simulation. So that's some of the theories that was put out there. Now, me being a Metal Gear Solid fan made me even more curious, more excited to kind of see what this game is going to be once it's out. To see, hey, maybe he does pull a fast one. Maybe this is connected to Metal Gear. Rather even be Silent Hills. I know a lot of people are fans of that gaming series, so I wouldn't have been mad at that either. But for me personally, the exciting thing would have been the Metal Gear connection, and not being pretty much a surprise to this. That would have been amazing for me. Of course, as we know, once the game came out, the story came out. So for the most part, there was nothing in there that was clear as day or even notioned enough, to be related to either property, rather be Silent Hills or Metal Gear Solid. There was nothing within this game that said for sure, hey, or any type of key clue to allow you to believe it is related to these games, or pretty much a story for these games, or in the same universe as these games. There was nothing there. So once the game came out, a lot of those theorists just disappeared. They stopped doing pretty much theories on how it's connected or why it's connected, things like that. You kind of just felt like those people were the hypest things, the hypest, people, and then they just decided to leave you high and dry and not give you a finalization of if they changed their mind or if certain things are the reason for this happening, where it's not clear as day that it is connected to the Metal Gear Solid universe or Silent Hills itself. In this case, I felt like, okay, if that's what Kojima decided to do, is do something totally different. That's certainly up to him. But I think it would have been pretty exciting to have some type of connection or relation to his previous work. And I feel like it should have been pretty impactful, pretty obvious, versus where you're just still in the dark. I think with this game releasing, you don't know anything more than what you knew beforehand as far as it relating back to any of his previous work. The story doesn't give you that type of element where you felt like, I feel good about still thinking this is related to Metal Gear or Silent Hills. It's kind of like its own individual standalone story. Doesn't feel like it's connected to anything. But I'll also get into what I feel like was strange about this game, to the point where it may be connected to his previous work. More so, Metal Gear Solid is what I think. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of elements within this game that does relate to the Patriots. If you're familiar with that series, then you know who I'm speaking of. There's a lot of things that can be done and kind of make sense for it being the Patriots involved in this whole system. Now, not that feeling alone is not based off of nothing. It's not a baseless opinion. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you really pay attention to the story in the game, there is a lot of question marks. There is a lot of things that you feel like, okay, Kojima is blatantly trying to take certain elements out of this story to not give away the bigger picture. And you can kind of sense that and see that if you really pay attention to a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the mistake to the story. Now, you can also argue that maybe saving a lot of stuff for the sequel. But in my opinion, I don't even think Kojima was really using this game as something he's going to continue to run with. I feel like this was him trying to at least give his all out for this game for it to work. And then if it works, go on with a sequel. I didn't get the notion or feeling based off of experience in this story that there was going to be, he was planning something much bigger for another game. I don't get that. I think there was a lot of mystery because I think he's not trying to give the full answer yet until he's ready to deliver his surprise game. I think the surprise game is going to be his Metal Gear Solid series. I think he's going to continue it. And again, I do think this is probably going to relate back to the Patriots. But I'll get more into that. Let me continue on speaking about this game in particular. So the theories was one of the things that built up that excitement, of course, and you kind of made you even want to find out what's going on with this game. Eventually, he did come out with some gameplay trailers where you can actually see how the game is going to function and play. Now you finally get an idea what you're going to be doing as a player versus the actual story. Of course, story-wise, he pretty much gave you, in a sense, a gist of possibly what it's going to be about, but you really didn't understand what you're going to be doing within the game. So once he finally did drop the trailer for the gameplay, of course there was a lot of mixed reviews about it, a lot of critique about it. A lot of people were upset and still is upset that they felt like it was going to be a walking simulator. So a lot of the trailers showed him, the character, which is Sam, which is played by Norman Reedus. So you kind of see him traveling a lot of open land, a lot of just beautiful landscapes. The art and design of the landscapes aren't bad. I mean, it looks like a post-apocalyptic world should look like, or a landscape should look like. Then you start to kind of, look at the beauty behind that. I mean, there's still certain animals and things like that you can see in the landscape, birds, things like that. So there's life around it as well, of course. But it looks beautiful, but it looks like you're pretty much just walking. Of course, you don't really see people throughout it as well. Whenever you are checking through the trailers, it's just pretty much Sam delivering certain packaging, things that people need. He's pretty much a servicer for people, pretty much isolated. So he's kind of just traveling, dropping those things off throughout the trailer. You kind of see the troubles of going through the landscapes and mountains and certain equipment that you're going to need during gameplay to kind of move around and get around and traverse the landscape and of course accomplish what he's trying to do. Now there is a particular trailer where you do see some action with Sam with a gun, things like that, but the game obviously makes it clear that you don't really want to kill people because obviously that'll leave BTs. You want to certainly try to navigate as easy as possible, but just kind of knock somebody out or keep them from being able to attack you. You don't really want to kill the person. So that's the objective and game and challenge to the game. You don't want to just go around shooting things up and killing people and things like that. So you kind of see that he has different equipment to tie people up, bound people, things like that, where he can get the equipment he needs from certain places that he's gone and kind of keep it moving from there. So pretty much what you see on the trailer for gameplay, people again weren't too pleased. They felt like it was more walking, more traveling than anything else, which in this case was true. I am happy that Kojima decided to show people what they're actually buying, what they're actually going to get with that experience. Now, there's a few interviews where he says, hey, beginning of the game is going to be kind of slow. It's going to get interesting and a little bit more exciting middle of the game / end of the game, which personally I disagree with. But I think that also kind of went against him just trying to be honest and say, hey, look, I know you guys feel like this is a walking simulator, but this is the principal point of this story. This is the principal point of the gameplay, and just break it down and say why he feels like it's not that. It's more to it. And that's fine. But you can't go into making people believe that they're going to get more than what they're seeing. You're going to get what you buy, what you see. And I think one thing about those trailers, it kind of didn't mislead you. They could have chopped it up easily to make it seem like it's going to be more action oriented. They could have chopped it up to make it seem like, you're going to be doing a lot more than just traveling. But in this case, the majority of the game is traveling. And that's the key point of the game, is survival in a sense. Avoiding BTs, using whatever weapons you can to, of course, get rid of some of the BTs that are in your way or inconvenience to you. But outside of that, that's what you pretty much get with that. So once the game finally came out, again, I was very excited due to the factors of those theories and just it possibly connecting. But once it came out, the story pretty much is his own story. Again, if you want to force connect, you can based off of the information you're receiving throughout the game. But there's no giveaways of what it connects to. So I'm going to get into what I feel like could have made it a better game. and a better experience for a lot of people. So one of the things that I felt like during those trailers, you knew in a sense it was going to be a story-based game. In other words, the story is going to be more forefront than the actual elements of the gameplay. In other words, the things you're going to be doing, the story is pretty much the forefront, and the rest of it is continuing that, building on that, and experiencing that. So story-wise, I felt like it was a pretty strong story. So it wasn't the lacking part of the game wasn't really the story itself. I do feel like there is a lot open. They left a lot open as far as story. I felt like it could have been a little bit more, how can I say, a little bit more action within the story as well. I feel like there weren't a lot of action scenes within the story. Cut scenes, of course, is what I'm speaking of. I feel like there could have been a little bit more fights within the story cut scenes versus, actually just the gameplay itself. I feel like that would have made it more exciting. Also, I think there could have been more better explaining of the people that was with Higgs. So the people that was the homo demons, it could have been more detailed as far as his organization with them, his connection with them. I just feel like they could have made that more exciting. Like they could have made his unit, his actual followers, more exciting. Higgs himself was a great character. I feel like he was one of the highlights of the game itself. But again, they could have added just a little bit more excitement behind Higgs, but not just Higgs alone. Of course, they put a pretty decent amount of good scenes with Higgs, but I feel like, they were pretty far separated, number one and number two. They could have put a little bit more, I would say 2 to 3 more key hit Higgs fighting scenes or cut scenes where he's doing something action oriented would have made the game story itself a little bit more exciting, and those cut scenes a little bit more exciting. Obviously, cutscenes play a big part in this game, so if you're knocking those out in an exciting way, you're keeping people invested, and also you're making them feel like they're getting a bang for their buck in a sense. So I feel like there could have been a little bit more action with Higgs, but not him itself, but maybe his unit, the people who followed him. Higgs' followers could have been more displayed. It looks like in a sense, he had a militant group, and really they're not pronounced in this game. You really don't feel like they're part of the story. In the beginning of the game, when Dow Hartman is going over pretty much Sam's mission with Emily in the room, of course, he pretty much you kind of get a display of Higgs and his followers in a sense there, and it looks pretty cool how they kind of preset that. It looks exciting. It looks like Higgs is key figure to this group and their beliefs, and then later in the game you kind of don't really get that fulfilling of the energy that was created throughout that scene itself. So again, I think they could have made them a bigger part of the story, just as followers, as group. There's not really too much displayed other than them helping Higgs when they're pretty much making Fragile go through the rainfall. That's pretty much really those key scenes. You really see them really helping Higgs and having a big part of the story. So I feel like they could have made them a little bit more part of the story, and they could have added a little bit more principal elements to the story as well. I feel like just it being about the end of the world in a sense, and them trying to speed up that process. That's pretty much what the game story is about. I feel like it could have been about a little bit more. I feel like, that's cool, but I think a lot of these sub elements of the story and plot could have been a little bit more built up. Let's find out more about Deadman. Why he never really had a birth, according to him. Why all of his organs, in a sense, from other people. Let's find out more history about Dow Hartman. Let's find out more background about his experiences. After, of course, the obvious parts of the story. Let's find out, why he feels like he needed to do some of the things he did throughout the story. Let's find out, more about fragile. Let's find out just a little bit more detail on how she got what she got and her connection to Sam. Because if you guys really pay attention, there's some type of deeper connection with fragile and Sam. Just pay attention to a lot of the scenes in the story. You can see that Fragile seems like she has more of a deeper connection to Sam and his past than what they really gave you in the game. You know what I mean? You can tell with some of the cutscenes there that there's some type of jealousy with her and Amelie, of course. You can kind of see that. You can see that throughout the game whenever those two are implemented in the story at times, or they had to kind of hear about each other or be around each other. You kind of get that jealousy factor there. And the guys, if you guys didn't notice that before, I'm stating this, go ahead and check back, play the game, play the story, check that out, and pay a little bit more attention to those scenes where it involves those three people. But yeah, I think there could have been more more of a revealance towards the end of the story between the connection between her and Sam. That's what I feel like. There is something definitely there, and Kojima decided not to give you that full effect. Also, Sam as a character, individually as a character, you don't really get too much of his backstory and what led him to become who he became. I think you get some things where you can kind of roughly put it together and say, oh yeah, well, probably this and that, and that's why he's this. But you don't really get that definite answer. You really don't get, is this true? Is this really how I should feel about this character? It doesn't give you that. There's a lot of things he refuses to talk about when there's some scenes within the game where he's being pretty much faced with his past. If you pay attention to the game, Sam is trying to ignore his past, and in doing so, us as the player doesn't really know too much about the character other than some of the obvious things. But as far as the meaty things on the bone, we don't really get that. You can tell he's angry about something, and that allows me to believe that there's so much more to the story than what is told within the story. If you are wondering what scene I'm talking about, or something to get more of a more in-depth experience of viewing it to see what I'm speaking of, check the scene with him and Deadman speaking about him losing his baby and his wife. That scene in particular pretty much gives it away that Sam may be a dark character, a little bit more darker than what we see. And there's something that he did or didn't do, or whatever it may be, in his past that allowed him to kind of erase those things from his mind. He kind of doesn't think about those things. All he knows is that he wasn't going to have a child and had a wife, and now they're gone. That's kind of pretty much where the character is now, if you pay attention. But again, as the plot develops and the story develops, you kind of see there's way more and so much more to Sam's story that you don't get within this game. And again, that's weird. And again, some people will say, hey, maybe saving it for the sequel. No, I believe, again, this game was supposed to be a one and done situation. If he does a sequel, it's something he's probably going to do a long time from now. If he does one, that's because he might see the love that people have for the game itself and decide to do a sequel because of the fan feedback, and people are telling him, hey, when are we going to get a sequel? It's only but so many times you can be asked that question and then start feeling like, hey, maybe I need to make a sequel. But overall, I believe this game's story was supposed to be a one and done situation. And that's what allows me to believe that it's connected to his previous work in some shape or form, where he's not trying to reveal all that. I believe there's a lot of question marks within the game. Another scene you guys can go back and check for, is the scene where Sam is first speaking to, he actually gets to her location, and that's the character Mama. There's a scene, if you guys pay attention, and again, I can't remember word for word, line for line. I'm just going to give roughly what to look for during their conversation. It's kind of like middle of their conversation, not really the beginning where she's telling him about her connection to the baby. It's more so about a little bit towards the middle of that sequence of them speaking. There's a scene where Sam's about to question Mama about something she is. And you guys can check back on it. It's a key factor to let you know that there's so much more to this game story. But Kojima doesn't want to give it to you. He wants you to kind of catch those things and figure it out. And possibly in the future, whenever he does reveal the ultimate point to the story or whatever it may be, or any connections to his previous games, he's going to give you those hints he left within those elements for you to figure out for yourself. In other words, I think he's going to laugh at all of us that we weren't able to figure out all the tricks and trails he was leaving for us. But in that particular scene, there's a part where he says, Mama, are you, he's about to ask her something. Now, what that may be, I have no clue. But I think that's going to give you that mystery answer to what you're looking for. To is this game connected to other games? Not only that, but also give you more of a understanding of what Death Stranding is as a whole. But check it out. Yeah, there's a part where he's about to ask her a question, and she kind of cuts him off. Just to let you guys know, she cuts him off to not allow him to finish, changes the subject, and then they go on about the conversation like it never happened. So he never really finished asking the question he was going to ask her, which again is pretty big. Now, if you guys already have that figured out and feel like, hey, I know what you're talking about, this is what he was going to ask her, please leave that in the comments. Let me know, because again, I have no idea what he was going to ask her, but it was going to be a key point to the bigger picture of what Death Stranding is. Trust me, it would have related, because Sam knows why he's there, why he's in this universe, why these things are happening. He does know, but he kind of plays a role. He plays his role of ignoring his past, the history, the trauma of what possibly allowed him to be in the boat he's in now. So him ignoring those things is him having a better understanding than we do as the player to know what's really going on. Not just what you know, but what's really going on. There's a lot of question marks to the BTs and what they are. There's a lot of question marks to the world. How did it end up so bad? And where are the rest of the people? What they say they're underground or whatnot. What does that look like? How many people is there? There's a lot of question marks that's not answered within this plot story. And there's a lot of reasons why Kojima decided not to get those questions answered. And again, for those people out there who keep saying sequel, I honestly don't think it has anything to do with a sequel. I think this was a one and done situation. It's more so for the player to figure these things out, catch them, because again, I think in the future, rather it be years from now or months from now, Kojima's eventually going to let us know those details that we should have followed to understand what's going on. Another reference before I move on with the topic is that Dead Man says, I'm sorry, not Dead Man, but Dial Hard Man, towards the beginning of the game when he finally gets Sam to commit to connecting everybody. Sam's in his room. Dial Hard Man comes in there and speaks to Sam, about the work he needs to do in order to connect everything. Not only that, he brings up something to do with we're going to need people on the outside. So check for that scene. It's not about delivering packages. How he words it, how that scene is displayed. Check it out, guys. Let me know what you think about it. But towards that scene, there's a part where he says, we're going to need people on the outside. And Sam says a lot of things about, you're just copies. We're just copies or something like that he was stating. What copies of what? It's a big question mark there. And again, if you guys have it figured out, leave a comment, let me know. But again, the story, there's a lot of secrets within this plot. Even just looking at the photo with him, his wife, and supposedly his mom, there's a lot of questions unanswered about that photo. A lot of questions unanswered about that photo. If you really pay attention of why it means so much to Sam. It's bigger than just the picture you see, trust me. But moving on, guys, let me know what your thoughts is about what I'm saying, and if you guys have figured out some of that stuff possibly that I didn't notice or see. But moving on, those revealings of those things would have made it a better game. Personally, that I'm mentioning all the details I just mentioned about the story just lacking as far as depth to the characters individually, about their past before the things that we're finding out. We're finding out parts and bits of their past, not necessarily, from Death Stranding to now, what they've been through or what really happened. You're not really finding that. And if you pay attention to a lot of the gray area, a lot of between the lines stuff, again, some of the things I mentioned as far as them not revealing certain things, you can see the story is meant to be, in a sense, a lot of those key plot points with these characters are meant to be hidden from the player. It's up to you to figure it out based off of the little that they're going to give you for it. And again, all those things I named, I think, are going to reveal eventually in the future a connection to a previous game that Kojima has created. Now, rather that be Metal Gear, rather that be Silent Hills, it's going to reveal some type of connection to those games, and that's why I think Kojima wanted to be so careful in what he revealed and and what he did reveal throughout this story. You're going to get enough where you get a complete game, what he wanted to give you, especially after the Metal Gear Solid V situation. I don't think he wanted to repeat that. So he gave you a complete story. It gave you enough where you feel like this game as a standalone game is complete. It's a complete game, but there's a lot of question marks within the game that makes you feel like there's a bigger plot than what we actually are experiencing and seeing and finish with. There's certainly something behind the scenes, and that's what I was going to refer to as far as why I believe this game is connected to his previous work. A lot of people figured out that the Phantom Pain was Metal Gear Solid, which Kojima was trying to keep from his fans when he was creating it and released the trailer through a separate studio, a different name. He didn't allow you to know it was him. A lot of people figured that out so early, I think, in a sense, and I know it sounds silly, but I think that upsetted him. Now he felt like, okay, I'm gonna get you guys way better than ever. I thought I was being harder than you guys then, trying to get you to figure out certain things, but now I'm gonna make sure this is almost impossible to figure out. Not only the most dedicated people is gonna figure these things out. So that's my opinion about the connection that I feel like it has to the previous games, and why that these games are connected to his previous work, which is, again, one of the main titles I say is Metal Gear Solid. So moving forward, I felt like some of those things being revealed within this game, let's just say, my theory is wrong and there's no bigger plot that, in other words, that relates back to his previous work. Let's just say he gave you those questions answered for you to fully understand the Death Stranding and these characters that's caught up in this situation and trying to survive it. If he gave us just a little bit more for us to get a grasp of what this story is and what it really is, not just the actual plot, but the actual story, the world they live in. There's so many question marks still unanswered as far as what is, why it is, and where is the rest of the people and how are they living. You really don't know all that. You can kind of try to put A and B together on your own, but honestly, the writer is the only person that really knows the truth whenever they do a story where you have to put parts and pieces together based off of what they're giving you, which is crumbs. You can get a crumb to a cookie, but you got to figure out what kind of cookie it was, if that makes sense. I think if they reveal just at least a half cookie and not a crumb of the overall picture, I'm not saying give everything away, because if he does decide to do a sequel one day, I understand he wants to have elements revealed where you didn't know beforehand. But again, I don't think there's a sequel going to be written, but that's fine as well. But you can also reveal certain key plot points of certain characters and the universe itself, and then still build on that on the second game. You still can. There's so much more to write to it. You don't really need those things in order to feel like the second game won't be good without it. But again, we won't know until it's actually one day revealed, if so. So those are some of the key things that I felt like shows that this game is connected to Metal Gear Solid, personally myself. I wanted to get into closing out this review and let you guys know that gameplay itself could have been a little bit more better as well. Let's just be honest, if he added a little bit more action to the gameplay instead of just walking and traveling and traversing through the landscapes, I think that would have, gave us some missions where we felt like there's more action involved. Now again, some people is going to love it the way it is, but I'm just saying to you, if you want the mass audience to kind of enjoy it, the story element I gave you earlier was a big part of what would have made it better, and also just a little bit more action. A little bit more action within the actual gameplay, a little bit more missions as far as getting things accomplished in an action sense, action way. Now I gave you some stuff on there. I'm not going to act like there's nothing in there. There's definitely something, but it's barely, and then also it's very far apart and spread it out. So that's some things that would have made this game better. Also, if it really is connected to another universe from its previous work, that's actually going to make this game the way it is even better. Overall, as far as story perspective, not really gameplay. So, maybe one day, years from now, months from now, whatever, we find out it is connected to something. I think that'll make people appreciate this game a little bit more. But again, we'll see. So I just wanted to kind of finish out this video and get into Kojima himself and my personal opinion about a lot of reasons why certain fans were divided, and just what I think and recommend Kojima to do moving forward. So this game is okay, and I think it's great the fact that Kojima decided to kind of allow his creativity to show and showcase it, and just kind of give fans a different side of him. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great in the overall picture. But as far as a small scale picture for people who just kind of love Kojima for specific works he's done, I don't think we're looking for anything extra unless we're still getting what we wanted. I think it would, and this is my opinion, if Kojima has a chance or opportunity or any type of say so to actually do another Metal Gear Solid game, I think that's what as fans we're looking forward to and what we want. We want another Metal Gear Solid game. We want a continuation of Big Boss's story. We want even Solid Snake. Maybe there's so much more to tell on that end as well. Even though 4 is supposed to be the cap point, they really can write it in the sense where it's really not the finale. There's definitely good ways to do that, and where it feels genuine as well. Also, again, Big Boss's story is technically still unfinished, and I'll certainly do a separate video on that series to kind of give you my opinion about why I feel like his story is finished. I mean, not finished, I'm sorry, and that there's so much left out, and Kojima knows that. He wants you guys to believe that you know everything, but there's so much more, and again, I'll get more in detail on that on a separate review for that series itself. But moving forward, talking about Kojima, I just feel like we were looking for certain things. Even would be a great thing is a remake of the first Metal Gear Solid game, and I mean the one from NES, the Nintendo, not the one that came out on PlayStation, the first PlayStation. I mean, of course, we do want a remake for that as well, but I'm just saying to you, I think you should start back on the first one from the NES, also the second one, and then get into the first one, which is the one we know from PS1. Remake that. I don't really personally think you need a remake of Part 2. That's just my honest opinion. I just feel like it even looks good in today's time, in my opinion. I think a remake of 3 with the pachinko machines, if you saw that, the graphics for that, if they're able to get up to those graphics for Part 3, Metal Gear Solid 3, I think that would be an amazing game. Just re-experiencing that, but in a better, just different look, better display, better, overall graphics for that game would make it 10 times better. And that's my personal favorite game out of the series is Part 3, which they did a great job on the writing, the characters, the story. Everything is just perfect with that game. I have no gripes or complaints. It was an amazing game. And to get that in a remastered, remake way, that would be amazing. But those are some of the things as fans for Kojima that we look forward to and what we really want from him. Of course, if he's doing those things I just named, and also completing his side stuff, which is maybe a Death Stranding, or he may decide to finally take the mantle and take up Silent Hills. I'm okay with that as well. But if Kojima is looking to still maintain his level of success what he was building, and keep fans interested in him as a creator, you definitely don't want to leave your previous great work unfinished. And again, I'll get into more depth on that review for the unfinished Metal Gear. I feel like as far as story wise, But overall, again, you want to complete that out, continue it as long as you can and complete it out. In this case, it's not completed out yet. I think the best has yet to come for that series itself. And again, if as long as he's delivering those things with his new ideas, we're okay with that. We're certainly okay if he feels like he needs to express himself in different ways outside of Metal Gear. There's nothing wrong with that as a creator. But again, that's only if he's able to get the rights to those games, or if he still has the rights to those games. As fans, we really don't know, because again, Kojima is known for tricking his fans. So all we can do is just stay tuned and continue to follow, his movements and what he decides to do in the future, and hopefully those things come to fruition. And I believe a lot of people will be satisfied, and he will be great again. He will be considered great again. Death Stranding kind of left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, a lot of fans' mouths, and even outsiders. A lot of people didn't really enjoy that experience as a whole, and there's definitely some people out there who loved it. And again, they have every right to love it. But if Kojima wants to keep his name above all and making games and things like that, then he wants to do some of those things I mentioned to kind of keep himself relevant, but also still stay true to his creativity and make things outside of that to keep his energy refreshed. If that's something he needs to do, that's fine as well. All right, beautiful people, don't forget to like and leave a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the review and why. Have a blessed day, guys, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the latest in reviews, news, and updates. I'm Mr. Review, here to help you save, never lose. Toodles.